The morning sun painted golden streaks across the quiet suburban neighborhood of Maplewood. Officer Sarah Chen adjusted her radio and checked her watch. 7:45 a.m. Beside her in the patrol car, Zeus, a magnificent German shepherd with alert brown eyes and a glossy black and tan coat, sat perfectly still. His ears twitched at every sound, trained to detect the slightest disturbance. Zeus had been Sarah's partner for 3 years now. The 4-year-old K-9 officer had an impressive record: drug busts, missing person searches, and criminal apprehensions. His nose could detect narcotics from incredible distances, and his training and protection work made him invaluable to the police force. Sarah often joked that Zeus was smarter than half the human officers on the force. This particular morning, they were responding to a call about suspicious activity near Riverside Elementary School. A janitor had reported seeing someone lurking around the playground equipment before dawn. With school starting in just over an hour, the administration wanted the area checked thoroughly. Sarah parked the cruiser near the school's main entrance. The building stood silent, its red brick walls and large windows still dark. Only a few staff cars dotted the parking lot. She clipped Zeus's working leash to his collar and opened the car door. The dog immediately jumped out, his powerful muscles rippling under his coat as he landed gracefully on the asphalt. "All right, buddy," Sarah said, her voice taking on the professional tone Zeus recognized. "Let's see what we can find." They walked toward the playground area behind the school. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of dew-covered grass and the distant aroma of someone's breakfast cooking. Zeus's nose worked constantly, processing hundreds of different smells that Sarah couldn't even imagine detecting. The playground sat empty, swings moving gently in the light breeze. Colorful monkey bars, slides, and climbing structures created an obstacle course of shadows in the early morning light. Sarah's trained eyes scanned the area methodically, looking for anything out of place: disturbed ground, dropped items, or signs of forced entry. Zeus suddenly stopped, his body going rigid. His ears perked forward, and a low growl rumbled in his throat. Sarah immediately became alert, her hand moving instinctively toward her radio. She had learned to trust Zeus's instincts completely. When he detected something, it was always worth investigating. "What is it, boy?" she whispered, following his gaze toward a cluster of large oak trees that bordered the school property. The dog's nose lifted, testing the air currents. His tail remained still, a sign that he was in full working mode. Sarah knew that Zeus could smell things that had been in an area hours or even days before. His incredible olfactory system could distinguish between different people, detect fear or aggression, and even identify specific substances. They moved slowly toward the trees, Sarah's boots crunching softly on fallen leaves. Zeus led the way, his nose to the ground, following an invisible trail that only he could perceive. The trees created a natural barrier between the school and a residential area beyond. It would be an ideal hiding spot for someone who didn't want to be seen. As they approached the largest oak tree, Zeus's behavior became more intense. His breathing quickened, and he began to pace in a small circle. Sarah recognized the signs. He had found something significant. She radioed for backup, speaking quietly into her shoulder microphone. "Unit 247 to dispatch. I'm at Riverside Elementary with K-9 Zeus. Dog is alerting to something in the wooded area behind the playground, requesting additional units." The dispatcher's voice crackled back immediately. "Copy, Unit 247. Units 251 and 263 en route. ETA 5 minutes. Sarah felt a surge of adrenaline as she and Zeus continued their search. This was what they had trained for. The moment when all their practice sessions and exercises translated into real police work. Zeus had never given a false alert in his career, and Sarah wasn't about to doubt him now. The dog suddenly froze again, this time staring intently at something behind the tree trunk. Sarah moved to get a better angle, her hand resting on her service weapon. What she saw made her heart skip a beat. Scattered on the ground were several items that clearly didn't belong in a school playground area. A black ski mask lay crumpled among the leaves. Nearby, she spotted what appeared to be a small crowbar and a canvas bag. The items looked fresh, as if they had been dropped recently. Zeus's nose led him to the canvas bag. As Sarah approached to examine it more closely, keeping a safe distance until backup arrived. She could see that it contained what looked like burglary tools, lockpicks, a small flashlight, and latex gloves. "Good boy, Zeus," she praised quietly, reaching into her pocket for one of his favorite training treats. "Excellent work." The sound of approaching sirens filled the air as backup units responded to her call. Sarah felt the familiar satisfaction that came with successful police work. Zeus had once again proven his worth as a law enforcement officer. But as they waited for the other officers to arrive, neither Sarah nor Zeus could have predicted that their routine morning would soon take a dramatic and dangerous turn. Hidden in the shadows of the nearby residential area, someone was watching them, someone who had been forced to abandon their tools when they heard the patrol car arriving, someone who wasn't finished with their plans for the school. The morning sun climbed higher, warming the air and casting longer shadows through the trees. Zeus remained alert, his powerful body coiled and ready for action. His years of training had prepared him for almost any situation, but even the best training couldn't predict every possible danger. As backup units arrived and began processing the scene, Sarah felt confident that they had prevented a potential break-in at the school. She had no way of knowing that the real challenge of their day was just beginning, or that Zeus's courage and training would soon be put to the ultimate test. 2 hours later, Sarah and Zeus were patrolling the residential streets near downtown Maplewood. The discovery at the school had led to a broader search of the area, and they were checking for any suspicious activity or signs of the person who had abandoned the burglary tools. The neighborhood was a mix of older homes and small apartment buildings. Tree-lined streets created a peaceful atmosphere, with children's bicycles on front lawns and flower gardens showing the first signs of spring growth. It seemed like the kind of place where nothing dangerous ever happened. Zeus rode in the back of the patrol car, his head moving constantly as he watched the world pass by through the specially designed windows. Even during transport, he remained alert and ready to work. Sarah had learned to read his body language perfectly over their years together. The slightest change in his posture could signal that he had detected something important. As they turned onto Elm Street, Sarah's radio crackled with a new call. "All units, we have a report of a domestic disturbance at 1247 Elm Street. Neighbors report shouting and sounds of a struggle. Respond code 2. Sarah's pulse quickened. Domestic disturbance calls were among the most dangerous situations police officers faced. The emotions involved were often intense and the situations could escalate quickly. Having Zeus with her provided an extra level of security and capability that she valued highly. She activated her emergency lights and responded to dispatch that she was 2 blocks away. Zeus immediately sensed the change in energy and sat up straighter. His ears perked forward in anticipation. The address led them to a modest 2-story house with peeling blue paint and an overgrown front yard. Sarah could see curtains moving in the front window, and she noticed that a neighbor across the street was standing on her porch. Clearly concerned about what was happening, Sarah parked the cruiser and quickly assessed the situation. She could hear raised voices coming from inside the house, though she couldn't make out the specific words. The front door was closed, but she noticed that one of the ground floor windows appeared to have been broken recently. She radioed her arrival and requested backup, then prepared Zeus for deployment. The dog was already focused on the house, his nose working to process the various scents coming from the property. "Zeus, working time," Sarah commanded, using the phrase that told him to be ready for anything. They approached the front door carefully, Sarah's training taking over as she positioned herself to one side of the entrance. She could hear what sounded like furniture being moved around roughly, and a woman's voice shouting something about calling the police. Sarah knocked firmly on the door. "Police, open the door!" The sounds from inside stopped immediately, replaced by an eerie silence that made Sarah even more cautious. Zeus pressed close to her side, his body tense and ready to respond to any threat. After waiting 30 seconds with no response, Sarah tried the door handle. It was unlocked. Following proper procedure, she announced herself again before slowly pushing the door open. "Police! We're coming in!" The front room of the house was in chaos. Furniture had been overturned, and broken glass from a picture frame sparkled on the carpet. Sarah could see into the kitchen where cabinet doors hung open and dishes were scattered across the floor. Zeus's nose immediately went to work, sorting through the complex mixture of scents in the house. Sarah knew he could detect fear, anger and stress through the chemical changes these emotions caused in human scent. He could also identify if weapons were present or if anyone was injured. A sound from upstairs caught their attention, footsteps moving quickly across the floor above them. Sarah made the decision to clear the ground floor first before investigating the upper level. They moved methodically through the house, Sarah calling out announcements as they went. In the kitchen, she found evidence of a struggle, a chair knocked over, coffee spilled across the counter, and what appeared to be blood drops on the linoleum floor. Zeus suddenly alerted to something in the basement doorway. His body went rigid and he gave a quiet whine that Sarah recognized as his signal for finding a person. "Hello, this is the police. If anyone is down there, please respond," a weak voice called back from the basement. "Help me, please help me." Sarah felt a surge of adrenaline. Someone was definitely in trouble. She radioed for an ambulance and additional backup, then carefully started down the basement stairs with Zeus leading the way. The basement was dimly lit by a single bulb hanging from the ceiling. As Sarah's eyes adjusted, she could see someone sitting on the floor in the corner, a middle-aged woman with disheveled hair and a torn blouse. "Ma'am, I'm Officer Chen with the Maplewood Police. Are you injured?" The woman looked up with relief flooding her face. "Thank God you're here. He locked me down here. I think he's still upstairs somewhere." Zeus had moved to check the rest of the basement while Sarah attended to the woman. His thorough training had taught him to always secure an area completely before relaxing his guard. "Who locked you down here?" Sarah asked, helping the woman to her feet. "My ex-husband, David. He broke in this morning. He was angry about the divorce papers. When I tried to call 911, he grabbed the phone and pushed me down here." Sarah's radio crackled with the arrival of backup units. She could hear car doors slamming outside and knew that help was on the way. "Stay here with Zeus," Sarah instructed the woman. "He'll protect you while I go check if your ex-husband is still in the house." But as Sarah started back up the basement stairs, Zeus suddenly charged past her, barking urgently. The dog had detected something that demanded immediate action. The sound of breaking glass came from upstairs, followed by heavy footsteps running across the floor. Someone was definitely still in the house, and they were trying to escape. Sarah rushed up the stairs with her weapon drawn, following Zeus's lead. The dog's training had kicked in completely now. He was in protection mode, ready to apprehend a suspect who posed a threat to others. What happened next would test every aspect of Zeus's training and courage, setting the stage for a confrontation that would change everything. Zeus bounded up the basement stairs ahead of Sarah, his powerful legs carrying him 3 steps at a time. His ears were pinned back and every muscle in his body was focused on the threat he had detected upstairs. Sarah followed close behind, her service weapon drawn and her radio crackling with updates from the backup units surrounding the house. As they reached the main floor, Sarah could hear someone moving around in what sounded like the back bedroom. Zeus immediately oriented toward the sound, his nose testing the air currents flowing through the house. The dog's incredible sense of smell was painting a detailed picture of the situation that Sarah couldn't see. "David Miller, this is the police," Sarah called out loudly. "The house is surrounded. Come out with your hands visible." The response was immediate and violent. The sound of splintering wood came from the back of the house, followed by the crash of breaking glass. Someone was trying to escape through a window. Zeus didn't wait for Sarah's command. His training took over and he raced toward the back bedroom with Sarah following closely. The dog's protective instincts were fully engaged now. He had identified a threat to both his partner and the victim they were trying to protect. They reached the bedroom doorway just in time to see a tall, bearded man climbing through the broken window frame. Glass shards clung to his jacket, and blood dripped from cuts on his hands. This had to be David Miller, the ex-husband who had terrorized his former wife. "Stop, police," Sarah shouted, but the man was already halfway through the window. Zeus launched himself forward without hesitation. His 90-pound frame flew through the air with incredible precision, his teeth baring as he prepared to apprehend the fleeing suspect. This was exactly what he had been trained for, stopping dangerous people who posed a threat to public safety. The collision between Zeus and David Miller was tremendous. The dog's momentum carried both of them through the window and onto the ground outside. Sarah rushed to the window and saw them tumbling across the small backyard, Zeus maintaining his grip while Miller struggled desperately to break free. "Zeus, hold," Sarah commanded, using the German phrase that told the dog to maintain his apprehension without escalating the level of force. But as Sarah started to climb through the window to assist, she heard something that made her blood run cold. The sound of metal striking bone echoed across the yard, followed immediately by Zeus's sharp yelp of pain. Miller had managed to grab a piece of broken concrete from a crumbling garden border. In his desperation to escape, he had struck Zeus hard across the head with the improvised weapon. The blow caught the dog just behind his left ear, and Zeus immediately released his grip and collapsed to the ground. "Zeus!" Sarah screamed, her heart pounding as she saw her partner lying motionless on the grass. Miller scrambled to his feet and began running toward the back fence, blood streaming from the dog bite wounds on his arm. Sarah faced an impossible choice: pursue the fleeing suspect or help her injured partner. There was no question what she would do. Sarah holstered her weapon and rushed to Zeus's side, dropping to her knees beside the unconscious dog. His beautiful brown eyes were closed, and she could see a growing patch of blood matting the fur behind his ear. "Officer down." "Canine officer down," she radioed frantically. "I need a veterinary ambulance at 1247 Elm Street immediately." Sarah gently placed her hands on Zeus's chest and felt his heartbeat, weak but steady. His breathing was shallow but regular. She had basic first aid training for canine injuries, but head trauma was serious and required immediate professional treatment. The backup officers were already pursuing Miller, their voices echoing from beyond the fence as they coordinated the chase. Sarah could hear a helicopter approaching in the distance, called in to assist with the manhunt, but all of Sarah's attention was focused on Zeus. This magnificent animal had risked his life to protect her and the victim. He had done exactly what he was trained to do, never hesitating to put himself in danger to serve and protect. "Come on, buddy," Sarah whispered, gently stroking Zeus's neck. "Stay with me. You're going to be okay." The sound of a child's voice suddenly cut through her concentration. "Is the doggy hurt? Is he going to be okay?" Sarah looked up to see a young girl, maybe 8 or 9 years old, standing at the fence that separated this yard from the neighboring property. The child had curly red hair and freckles across her nose, and her green eyes were wide with concern as she stared at the unconscious police dog. "Sweetie, you need to go back inside," Sarah said gently, not wanting to frighten the child but needing to focus on Zeus's care. But the little girl didn't move. Instead, she climbed over the low fence with the agility that only children possess and walked closer to where Sarah knelt beside Zeus. "My name is Emma," the girl said seriously. "I live next door with my grandma. I saw what happened from my bedroom window." Sarah was about to insist that Emma return to her house when she noticed something remarkable. Zeus's ear twitched slightly at the sound of the child's voice. His breathing seemed to become a little stronger. "Zeus can hear you, Emma," Sarah said softly. Dogs respond to gentle voices when they're hurt. Emma knelt down carefully beside the police dog, her small hand hovering uncertainly near his head. "Hi, Zeus, you're a brave doggy. You were protecting everyone, weren't you?" To Sarah's amazement, Zeus's eyes fluttered open briefly at the sound of Emma's voice. The dog was still unconscious, but something about the child's presence seemed to be reaching him. The distant sound of sirens was getting closer. The veterinary emergency team was on its way. But Sarah realized that Emma might be providing exactly what Zeus needed right now: a calm, caring presence to help anchor him to consciousness. "Keep talking to him, Emma," Sarah encouraged. "I think you're helping him stay strong." What neither Sarah nor Emma could have predicted was that this moment marked the beginning of an extraordinary bond between a little girl and a police dog, a connection that would soon prove crucial when Zeus needed help more than ever before. The veterinary ambulance arrived within minutes, its specially equipped interior designed specifically for treating injured police dogs. Dr. Martinez, the department's consulting veterinarian, jumped out with her medical bag and portable equipment. She was a small woman with gray-streaked hair, but Sarah knew her reputation for saving the lives of countless canine officers. "What happened?" Dr. Martinez asked as she knelt beside Zeus, her experienced hands immediately beginning to assess his condition. "Blunt force trauma to the head," Sarah reported. "He's been unconscious for about 10 minutes. Breathing and heartbeat are steady but weak." Emma remained kneeling beside Zeus, her small hand gently resting on his front paw. "He opened his eyes when I talked to him," she told the veterinarian seriously. Dr. Martinez looked at the little girl with surprise, then back at Zeus. "That's actually very encouraging. Head injury patients often respond to familiar or calming voices." The veterinarian worked quickly. checking Zeus's pupils with a small flashlight and listening to his heart with a stethoscope. She ran her hands carefully along his skull, feeling for fractures or other injuries. "I don't think there's a skull fracture," she announced, much to Sarah's relief. "But he definitely has a concussion. We need to get him to the animal hospital immediately for x-rays and monitoring." As Dr. Martinez and her assistant carefully lifted Zeus onto a stretcher, Emma stood up and walked alongside them. "Will Zeus be okay, doctor?" "I think so, sweetheart. He's a strong, healthy dog, and head injuries in German Shepherds often heal well with proper treatment. But he'll need to rest and recover for several days." Sarah felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Zeus would survive, though she knew his recovery might take time. As they loaded him into the veterinary ambulance, she noticed that his eyes opened again briefly when Emma said goodbye. "I'll come visit you, Zeus," Emma promised through the ambulance window, "and I'll bring you some of my grandma's homemade dog cookies." After the ambulance departed, Sarah spent several minutes talking with Emma's grandmother, Mrs. Patterson, who had come outside when she heard the commotion. The elderly woman was clearly proud of her granddaughter's compassion, but concerned about her safety. "Emma has always loved animals," Mrs. Patterson explained. "She volunteers at the animal shelter on weekends and wants to be a veterinarian when she grows up." Sarah exchanged contact information with Mrs. Patterson and promised to let them know how Zeus was doing. She also made sure Emma understood that she had been very brave but should always ask permission before approaching injured animals. The next few days passed slowly for Sarah. She visited Zeus at the animal hospital every day after her shift, bringing his favorite toys and treats. The dog was making steady progress, though Dr. Martinez explained that head injuries required careful monitoring for complications. Zeus seemed listless and confused during the first 2 days. He recognized Sarah but appeared disoriented by his surroundings. The veterinary staff kept him under observation, watching for signs of swelling in his brain or other serious complications. On the 3rd day, Sarah arrived at the hospital to find Emma and her grandmother in the waiting room, holding a small basket covered with a checkered cloth. "We brought Zeus some special cookies," Emma announced excitedly. "Grandma and I made them with ingredients that are safe for dogs." Dr. Martinez allowed them to visit Zeus together. The police dog was awake and alert, lying on a comfortable bed in one of the recovery rooms. When he saw Sarah, his tail wagged weakly and he managed to lift his head slightly. But when Emma entered the room, something remarkable happened. Zeus's ears perked up immediately, and his tail began wagging with more energy than Sarah had seen since the injury. The dog clearly remembered the little girl who had stayed with him during his darkest moment. "Hi, Zeus," Emma said softly, approaching his bed slowly. "I brought you cookies, but the doctor says you can only have one today." Zeus actually managed to sit up partially, his brown eyes fixed on Emma with unmistakable recognition and affection. Dr. Martinez watched with professional interest as the dog's demeanor brightened significantly in the child's presence. "This is quite remarkable," the veterinarian murmured to Sarah. "Animal-assisted therapy works both ways. Sometimes humans help animals heal just as much as animals help humans." Emma spent an hour with Zeus talking to him about her school, her pets at home, and her plans to become a veterinarian. The dog listened intently, his head resting on the edge of his bed, positioned so he could see her clearly. When visiting time ended, Zeus watched Emma leave with obvious disappointment. But the visit had clearly lifted his spirits and energy levels in a way that surprised the medical staff. Dr. Martinez pulled Sarah aside as they prepared to leave. "Zeus is healing faster than I expected. His neurological responses are improving daily, and I think he'll be ready to return to light duty within a week or 2. Sarah felt enormous relief. A canine officer's career could be ended by a serious head injury, and she had been worried that Zeus might never be able to return to police work. But as they walked to the parking lot, Mrs. Patterson shared some news that would soon create an entirely new challenge for everyone involved. "I'm afraid Emma and I will be moving next week," she said sadly. "I've been offered a job in another state and we can't pass up the opportunity." Emma is heartbroken about leaving Zeus, especially now that he's hurt. Sarah felt her heart sink. She had watched the special bond developing between Emma and Zeus, and she knew that losing his young friend might affect the dog's recovery. But she had no idea that Emma's departure would soon lead to a situation where Zeus would need the little girl's help more desperately than anyone could imagine. 2 weeks later, Zeus was cleared to return to light duty. His recovery had been remarkable, though Dr. Martinez insisted that he avoid high-stress situations for another month. Sarah was overjoyed to have her partner back, even if their work would be limited to routine patrols and community relations events. Emma had already moved with her grandmother to their new home 3 hours away. The goodbye at the animal hospital had been emotional for everyone. Zeus had whined softly as Emma hugged him carefully, and the little girl had promised to write letters that Sarah could read to him. Sarah and Zeus were adjusting to their modified routine when they received an unusual assignment. The department had organized a community safety demonstration at Riverside Elementary School, the same school where they had found the burglary tools weeks earlier. Zeus would demonstrate his tracking abilities for the students, and Sarah would talk about K-9 police work. The irony wasn't lost on Sarah as they pulled into the school parking lot on a crisp Friday morning. Their last visit here had led to the chain of events that resulted in Zeus's injury. Now they were returning as part of an educational program designed to build positive relationships between police and the community. Zeus seemed excited to be working again, even if it was just a demonstration. His energy was nearly back to normal, and his enthusiasm for police work remained as strong as ever. Sarah had worked with him on simple tracking exercises during his recovery, and his abilities appeared unaffected by the head injury. The school assembly was scheduled for 10 a.m. in the gymnasium. Sarah and Zeus arrived early to set up the demonstration course and test the sound system. The janitor who had originally reported the suspicious activity recognized them and thanked them for their quick response weeks earlier. As students began filing into the gymnasium, Sarah noticed the excitement on their faces. Many of the children had never seen a police dog up close, and Zeus's impressive appearance drew gasps of admiration from the young audience. Sarah began her presentation by explaining Zeus's training and the important work that K-9 officers performed in the community. Zeus sat perfectly at attention beside her, demonstrating the discipline and control that made him such an effective police partner. Zeus can track missing people, find hidden objects, and help keep everyone safe, Sarah explained to the captivated audience. He's been specially trained to use his incredible sense of smell to help solve crimes and protect our community. The demonstration went perfectly. Zeus successfully tracked a volunteer teacher across the gymnasium, located a hidden object that Sarah had planted earlier, and showed his obedience training by responding to various commands. The students applauded enthusiastically after each exercise. During the question and answer session, a third-grade boy raised his hand. Has Zeus ever been hurt while doing police work? Sarah glanced at Zeus, remembering his recent injury and recovery. Police work can sometimes be dangerous for both human and dog officers, she answered honestly. Zeus was recently injured while helping to arrest a dangerous person, but he's recovered completely and is back to keeping everyone safe. After the assembly, Sarah and Zeus were walking back to their patrol car when Sarah's radio crackled with an urgent message that made her heart race. All units, we have a report of a missing child at 1847 Oak Street, 8-year-old girl, last seen playing in her backyard approximately 1 hour ago. Family has searched the immediate area, requesting K-9 unit for tracking assistance. Sarah's training kicked in immediately. Missing child cases were always high priority, and Zeus's tracking abilities could be crucial in locating the girl quickly. She radioed her response and activated her emergency lights. As they raced toward Oak Street, Sarah's mind was already focused on the search procedure. Zeus would need a scent article from the missing child, a piece of clothing or a toy she had been playing with. The search would need to begin from the last known location and expand outward systematically. They arrived at a modest house where several police cars were already parked. A frantic woman rushed toward Sarah as she stepped out of the patrol car. Are you the dog officer? Please, you have to find my daughter. She was playing in the backyard, and when I called for lunch, she was gone. Sarah could see the terror in the mother's eyes. Every parent's worst nightmare was unfolding, and time was critical in missing child cases. The longer a child was missing, the more dangerous the situation became. What's your daughter's name? Sarah asked, already preparing Zeus for the search. Lily. Lily Henderson. She's 8 years old with blonde hair and a pink jacket. Sarah felt her blood run cold. The description matched perfectly with a child who had been reported as a possible abduction target in an alert issued just that morning. A convicted child predator had been released from prison 2 days earlier and was believed to be in the area. Zeus was already alerting to something, his nose working frantically as he processed the scents around the house. His body language told Sarah that he was detecting something significant, possibly the trail of the missing child. But as Sarah prepared to begin the tracking operation, she had no way of knowing that Zeus's head injury had affected his abilities more than anyone realized. The concussion had damaged his sense of smell in ways that wouldn't become apparent until he was under extreme stress. And in a cruel twist of fate, the missing child they were searching for was Emma Patterson, who had returned to visit her grandmother for the weekend. The little girl who had helped Zeus during his recovery was now the one who desperately needed his help. But Zeus's injured senses might not be able to save her in time. Sarah's heart pounded as she realized the missing child was Emma Patterson. Mrs. Patterson stood in the backyard, tears streaming down her face as she explained that Emma had been visiting for the weekend when she mysteriously disappeared. She was right here playing with her dolls. Mrs. Patterson sobbed. I went inside for just 10 minutes to answer a phone call. When I came back, she was gone. Zeus was acting strangely. He kept starting to follow what appeared to be a scent trail, then stopping and shaking his head in confusion. Sarah had never seen him behave this way during a tracking operation. His nose would lead him a few steps in one direction, then he would pause and seem lost. Zeus, search, Sarah commanded, using the German tracking command that had never failed to focus his attention. The dog tried again, his nose to the ground, but his movements were hesitant and uncertain. After a few minutes, he sat down and looked at Sarah, with what appeared to be frustration, something completely unlike his usual confident tracking behavior. Dr. Martinez had warned that injuries could sometimes cause delayed complications, but Sarah had hoped Zeus was fully recovered. Now, facing the most important search of his career, his abilities seemed compromised. Detective Williams, who had arrived to coordinate the search, approached Sarah with urgent news. We just got confirmation that Marcus Webb, the released predator, was seen in this neighborhood 2 hours ago. A convenience store clerk identified him from photos. Sarah felt sick. Every minute that passed reduced the chances of finding Emma safely. She made the difficult decision to call for backup tracking dogs from neighboring departments, but she knew they were at least an hour away. Zeus suddenly lifted his head and let out a long, mournful howl, a sound Sarah had never heard him make before. It was as if he understood the importance of the situation and was expressing his frustration at his inability to help. Mrs. Patterson approached them, her face etched with desperation. Zeus knows Emma, doesn't he? She visited him in the hospital. Yes, Sarah replied, an idea beginning to form. They formed a special bond. Could that help somehow? Emma always said Zeus was the smartest dog she'd ever met. Sarah knelt beside Zeus and spoke to him in the gentle tone she had heard Emma use. Zeus, we need to find Emma. She needs our help. At the mention of Emma's name, Zeus's ears perked up slightly. His brown eyes focused on Sarah with more intensity than she had seen since the search began. Sarah quickly got one of Emma's favorite sweaters from Mrs. Patterson and held it for Zeus to smell. This time, when he processed the scent, something clicked. His entire demeanor changed, and he began moving with purpose toward the back fence. The trail led through several backyards, with Zeus becoming more confident as they progressed. Sarah realized that his emotional connection to Emma was somehow overriding the confusion caused by his injury. Love and loyalty were proving stronger than physical limitations. They followed the trail for nearly half a mile, through a wooded area that led to an abandoned warehouse district. Zeus's pace quickened as they approached, a cluster of empty buildings that would provide perfect hiding, places for someone who didn't want to be found. Sarah radioed their location and requested immediate backup. As they approached the largest warehouse, Zeus suddenly froze and gave a low growl. Someone was definitely inside the building. Sarah could hear voices coming from within, a man's voice and a child's frightened response. Her heart raced as she realized they had found Emma, but the situation was extremely dangerous. Police. The building is surrounded, Sarah shouted, though she knew backup was still several minutes away. The voices inside immediately stopped. Sarah knew she had to make a critical decision. Wait for backup and risk the suspect escaping with Emma, or take action now while she had the element of surprise. Zeus made the decision for her. The dog suddenly bolted toward a broken window at the side of the building, his protective instincts overriding everything else. Sarah could hear Emma's voice calling out from inside. "Zeus! Zeus, is that you? Help me." The sound of Emma's frightened voice seemed to restore Zeus's abilities completely. His head injury no longer mattered. His young friend needed him, and nothing would stop him from reaching her. Sarah followed Zeus through the window into the dimly lit warehouse. Old machinery and stacked crates created a maze of shadows and hiding places. She could hear movement deeper in the building and Emma's voice calling for Zeus. "Stay back," a man's voice shouted. "I have the kid." Zeus was already moving through the warehouse like a guided missile, his nose leading him directly toward Emma's location. Sarah followed, her weapon drawn and her radio broadcasting their position to incoming backup units. They found Marcus Webb in a corner of the warehouse, holding Emma's arm while she struggled to break free. The convicted predator was a large man with wild eyes and nervous gestures that suggested he was under the influence of drugs. "Let her go, Webb," Sarah commanded. "You're surrounded, and there's nowhere to run." Emma saw Zeus and her face lit up with hope despite her terror. "Zeus, I knew you would find me." Webb pulled Emma closer, using her as a shield. "Stay back or I'll hurt her." But Zeus was beyond following commands now. He saw Emma in danger, and his training, instincts, and love for the little girl combined into pure determination. The dog launched himself at Webb with incredible speed and precision. The impact knocked Webb backward, causing him to release his grip on Emma. The little girl immediately ran toward Sarah while Zeus pinned the suspect to the ground, his powerful jaws gripping Webb's arm to prevent any further resistance. "Zeus, hold," Sarah commanded, rushing to secure the suspect while ensuring Emma was unharmed. As backup units swarmed into the warehouse, Sarah felt overwhelming relief. Emma was safe, Zeus had overcome his injury when it mattered most, and a dangerous predator was in custody. Emma threw her arms around Zeus's neck as soon as Sarah gave the release command. "Good boy, Zeus. You saved me just like I knew you would." Zeus's tail wagged furiously as he gently licked Emma's face, his brown eyes bright with joy and satisfaction. The head injury that had threatened to end his career seemed forgotten in the moment of triumph. Later, as paramedics checked Emma for injuries and detectives processed the crime scene, Dr. Martinez arrived to examine Zeus. She was amazed by his performance despite his recent trauma. "It's remarkable," she told Sarah. The emotional bond between Zeus and Emma somehow helped him overcome the confusion caused by his concussion. Love really is the most powerful medicine. Emma's grandmother arrived and hugged both Zeus and Sarah with tears of gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you both. You brought my granddaughter home safely." As the media gathered to report on the successful rescue, Emma insisted on staying close to Zeus. The little girl who had comforted an injured police dog had been saved by that same dog when she needed help most. "Zeus is a hero," Emma announced to the reporters. "He's the bravest dog in the whole world, and he's my best friend." Zeus sat proudly beside Emma, his head held high and his eyes alert. The canine officer had proven that courage, training, and love could overcome any obstacle. His badge gleamed in the late afternoon sun as photographers captured the moment. That would be remembered as one of the most heartwarming rescues in the department's history. The bond between a police dog and a little girl had saved the day, showing that sometimes the most powerful force in law enforcement isn't training or equipment. It's the unbreakable connection between those who care for each other.